It was just after sunrise in the Caribbean Sea, just north of Venezuela. The water was calm, almost glassy, stretching endlessly in every direction. The sky held that soft orange glow that only lasts a few minutes each morning. The USS Gerald R moved steadily through open ocean, a floating city of steel and quiet precision. To the sailors on deck, it felt like a routine morning. Another watch rotation, another quiet shift at sea. Nothing unusual. Then the radar picture changed. Two fast-moving contacts appeared far out on the horizon. Low altitude, high speed, closing quickly. They were not commercial aircraft. They were not friendly patrols. The speed and flight profile told a different story immediately. Deliberate, controlled, and aimed straight at the strike group. Down in the Combat Information Center, operators leaned forward in their chairs. The room was dim, lit mostly by radar scopes and data screens. Bearings, altitude, speed, vectors, all updating in real time. A technician confirmed the tracks. Another checked identification. No friendly response, no coordination, no radio call. On the flight deck, normal chatter faded. Sailors paused mid-task and looked toward the distant sound growing louder by the second. Heat shimmered above the water as the aircraft broke through the morning haze. Two Venezuelan aircraft came into view, low and aggressive. Their silhouettes sharpened as they approached, wings steady, altitude tight to the surface. They crossed the carrier's bow in a sharp, intimidating pass. The maneuver was not designed for safety. It was designed for effect. The Ford did not respond. On the bridge, the commanding officer watched through binoculars. His expression never changed. His voice stayed level. That single instruction carried the doctrine behind every carrier strike group transit. Do not yield to noise. Do not validate provocation. Keep the ship steady and keep the formation disciplined. The jets climbed sharply and peeled away. To an outsider, it looked like a close call. To the crew, it was posturing. Inside the ship, sensors confirmed what the eye could not. No weapons observed. Hard points appeared clean. The profile matched intimidation rather than an attack run. 2 minutes later, the situation escalated. Before we go any further, if you want real-world military encounters broken down the way they actually unfold, not headlines, not hype, take a second to subscribe to Navy Recon. We focus on the decisions, the restraint, and the moments that almost never make the news. Now here's where this encounter stopped being routine. Radar operators called out additional contacts. Same direction, same aggressive closure. Another pair joining the first, bringing the total to 4 aircraft. The spacing was tight and intentional, consistent with coordinated maneuvering rather than casual flight. No panic followed, no raised voices. Training took over. In the Combat Information Center, the watch officer updated the tactical action officer. Identification remained unresolved. Hails went unanswered. The air picture was maintained and shared across the strike group. The carrier's escorts adjusted their screen, moving forward subtly to tighten the protective geometry around the Ford. On the flight deck, the response was immediate and procedural. 2 F-18 Super Hornets were brought forward. Deck crews moved with practiced precision. Fuel lines disconnected. Final checks completed. Catapult crews took positions. The launch sequence progressed without urgency, because urgency creates mistakes, and mistakes are what provocations are designed to harvest. With a thunderous roar, the first Hornet launched off the bow. Moments later, the second followed. Both aircraft climbed hard, banking toward the inbound tracks. Their mission was clear: intercept, identify, de-escalate. High above, an airborne early warning aircraft maintained a wide orbit, feeding a clean radar picture into the network. The strike group did not rely on a single sensor. It layered visibility, carrier radar, airborne radar, escort tracking, and cockpit data links. The result was total situational awareness in a sky where the other side was trying to create uncertainty. As the American fighters closed in, the Venezuelan aircraft began unsafe maneuvering. They cut across the Hornet's projected flight path at high speed, close enough to trigger proximity cues, close enough that one slight correction could become a collision. The objective was not tactical advantage. It was to test restraint, to push for a reaction that could be framed later. The American pilots did not react. They held position. They maintained separation. They recorded everything. Back on the carrier, updates flowed to the bridge and to the Combat Information Center. Unsafe maneuvers, close passes, continued provocation. The Ford did not change course or speed. Escorts continued to tighten. Electronic warfare systems activated in measured fashion, not to announce presence, but to reduce risk and deny clean targeting solutions. The Venezuelan aircraft pressed closer. They flew tighter formations. They dipped lower. They crossed paths again and again. Each pass looked slightly more aggressive than the last. Not enough to justify escalation. Enough to remain dangerous. Every second was logged. Then the profile changed. A higher performance contact appeared in the picture, climbing and accelerating. The track characteristics did not match the earlier aircraft. In the Combat Information Center, operators rechecked the radar return. The signature was sharper. The speed was higher. The closure was more direct. This is where the encounter shifted from theater to a real risk event. The new aircraft was identified as a Venezuelan F-16. It came in from altitude and began a steep descending approach toward the strike group. Not a wide pass, not a distant circle, but a direct dive profile that forced immediate defensive readiness. Even without weapons, a high-speed aircraft diving toward a carrier formation is treated as a potential threat because the timeline collapses. Minutes become seconds. Automatic defenses responded instantly. Tracking sensors locked on. Fire control solutions updated. Close-in weapon systems aligned. Safeties remained engaged because the strike group did not fire based on fear. It fired based on confirmed hostile intent under rules of engagement, and that line is deliberately hard to cross. Standby. On deck, sailors looked up. The jet itself was not yet visible to everyone, but the tension was. Carried through comms traffic and posture. Flight deck crews continued working because routine is a stabilizer. Panic is contagious. The ship's discipline prevented it. In the air, the Hornets shifted to a tighter shadow position. No aggressive moves, no radar locking that could be interpreted as a pre-strike posture. The pilots maintained a controlled intercept geometry, ready to block and track, not to escalate. The F-16 continued its dive. Altitude dropped rapidly. The approach angle tightened. The aircraft crossed into a zone where a mistake would not just be dangerous, it would be catastrophic. This was not a normal patrol profile. It was a deliberate intimidation run, using a more capable aircraft to raise the pressure. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer watched the range count down. The bridge maintained the same instruction: maintain course. This was not performance, it was policy. If the carrier turned away, it would validate the tactic. If it surged speed or changed heading in response to a dive, it would broadcast that the provocation succeeded. The strike group's posture said the opposite. It said the formation would not be shaped by foreign aggression in international waters. At the last possible moment, the F-16 pulled up. The recovery was hard, aggressive, and dangerously close. The sound rolled across the sea like thunder. The jet's wake turbulence disturbed the air around the intercepting fighters. The maneuver came close enough that every sensor flagged it as unsafe. For several seconds, the entire encounter balanced on discipline and restraint. Then the Venezuelan aircraft broke away. The F-16 climbed, the earlier aircraft turned south. The formation loosened and began to retreat toward the coastline. Radar confirmed decreasing speed and increasing separation. The strike group held position. No pursuit beyond established boundaries, no retaliatory maneuvering, no escalation, only tracking, recording, and controlled separation. Moments later, a brief targeting radar emission was detected. A single pulse, short in duration, enough to signal intent without committing to a full lock. The strike group logged it and continued without visible reaction. The encounter ended the way most gray zone provocations end, not with fire, but with competing narratives. By mid-morning, Venezuelan state media released footage claiming their aircraft forced the American carrier to retreat. Grainy video, confident headlines, a domestic message built for optics. The operational record told a different story. The USS Gerald R never changed course. Inside command rooms far from the Caribbean, analysts reviewed the event frame by frame. The conclusion was consistent. The initial flybys were intimidation. The later dive was escalation designed to compress decision time and trigger an overreaction. The objective was not to attack. The objective was to force the carrier group into a visible response. That response never came. This is the core of carrier deterrence in the modern era. The visible strength is not the catapults or the aircraft or the sensors, even though those matter. The visible strength is restraint. It is posture. It is the ability to absorb provocation without becoming predictable. Gray zone tactics thrive on emotion. They are built to create a headline, a clip, a moment that can be replayed as proof of dominance. The strike group denied that outcome by refusing to provide a reaction that could be turned into a victory. A carrier strike group is designed to fight. That is not in question. What matters is that it is also designed to control escalation, because escalation control is what keeps minor incidents from turning into major conflicts. That morning, the message was delivered without words. Unsafe maneuvers were met with tracking. Intimidation was met with procedure. Escalation was met with discipline, and the strike group continued on course. If this is the kind of operational breakdown you want more of, like the video, subscribe, and stay locked in. Navy Recon covers what happens, why it matters, and what the posture actually signals without the noise.